Hey y'all, it's your boy Tim here. Welcome back to my very last planned zombies video. If you watched the Cold War analysis, you knew this one was coming. This is the 7th episode of this series, this final series. It's not really an analysis, it's more or less a summarization, alright? Because if you want an in-depth look at all of these Treyarch games, I'm talking World at War, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, and Black Ops Cold War, those 6 games. If you want an in-depth analysis of it, literally just watch the analysis series. That was the whole point of this series, goddammit. So, I'm just going to be summarizing my thoughts on all the games in a ranking style video, so you won't be getting a huge in-depth analysis with each of these. It's actually going to be a pretty brief video, I'm guessing. This is just kind of a fun idea that I thought of off the cuff. So, we're going to rank these 6 games. None of them are particularly bad because they are Treyarch games, so I actually enjoy all of them, some a little less than others, but without further ado, hope you enjoy. Let's get into this. Number 6 of 6, the universal least favorite, is Black Ops 4. I don't even think there is a doubt about that, and I think it's far and away the worst of these Treyarch games, and there are some good things about it. Okay, I'm not going to totally dog all over this game. Number 1, I'm going to compliment it twofold. Number 1, I think not all, some of the storytelling was pretty good, and I think some of the map designs were really good. Like Ancient Evil and 9 come to mind. Those are top 10 maps. Those are genuinely great maps, but the rest of the game is a dumpster fire. And it starts with the lack of identity. Huge identity crisis, right? You had this Ether storyline limping to its grave simultaneously, tied with this Chaos storyline, this new emerging story that wasn't particularly interesting, right? No one knew where this game was going when it was going. You know what I mean? Like, we were all confused the entire time. Is it Ether? Is it Chaos? They didn't promote the maps very well, if at all. There was a lot of turmoil going on behind the scenes with Activision, which is why I don't want to give Treyarch too much shit. But what Treyarch was culpable for, definitely, was the overarching theme of this game, which is fixing things that were not broken to begin with, and that really starts and ends with this perk system. This perk system was disastrous. Truly disastrous, and I know people were going to push back on that, but here are my thoughts on it, right? So, you had these 4 iconic perks, Jug, Quick Revive, Speed, and Double Tap, that were deemed crutch perks. So Treyarch's like, alright, let's get rid of them. Fine. Well, what do they do with them? They implement Jug at the beginning of the game with 200 default HP. So you are walking around when the game starts with a 4-hit down. That immediately murders any natural game progression. And while we're talking about killing natural game progression, talk about that OP specialist that you spawn in with. It is as good as a wonder weapon, if not better. That's also a major problem. What do they do with Double Tap? Well, you got to pack a punch your gun 5 consecutive times, totaling 15 grand to get it to its full Double Tap effect. You have to have all of the perks to have the quick reload Speed Cola effect, and then Quick Revive was just thrown in with as a self-revive. So that all kind of sucks. And then what they replace all of those perks with? Well, a bunch of mediocre, sort of lifeless perks that kind of sucked all the soul out of the game. None of them were outstanding in a negative or positive way. It all sounded good on paper, but so does communism, the idea of everything being equal and everyone being treated. Yeah, well, that's not actually real life. Okay? The perk system was ass. A lot of the other mechanics were as well. The HUD was gross. The elixir system was terrible. I enjoy some of the pre-game customization, but a lot of it sort of just stripped away any in-game variety you experience. You sort of just select everything you want right before the game. A lot of it's OP. Those equipment disincentivizes getting a lot of the equipment in the game, like the Hell's Retriever, for example. Wraithfires are just better. I thought the guns were really boring. Not very good either. Man, just not a great game. It could have been worse, but not much worse. So it's number 6. But, just keep in mind that I don't actually hate it. I can play it. I'll load it up any day of the week. That's a lie, but I'm capable of playing it. Number 5 of 6, I got World at War here. I think World at War was good for its time, but that doesn't really hold too much weight. There are so many glitches and bugs that just purely come from the fact that it was an older game, that a lot of game-breaking stuff, like the whole Wonderwaff glitch on Doris where you lose Jug, the whole Verrucht Sprinter thing. I could go on and on and on with all of these glitches, a lot of them game-breaking, but you don't really go to World at War for, the most tight gameplay, I suppose. You really go there for the bare bones experience, which it provides in spades. You know, you have those classic maps, classic vibes, really good guns too. There were only 4 maps. There's really not a ton of depth to World at War, but you can't expect that from the very first game. Of course, it is the foundation of the entire mode, so you have to keep that in mind. But you also have to keep in mind that you can't just let nostalgia completely blind you. I mean, World at War objectively is not in the top 3. Like, it's just not. It's good. It has its moments. It has its purpose. World at War is good, but it's not higher than 5 or 6. At number 4, I have Cold War. Now, Cold War's gameplay is significantly better than the previous 2 games we just talked about, but what holds Cold War back from being higher up in this list, in my opinion, is the storytelling and the actual map variety. There's 4 maps. None of them are outstanding, right? D Machine's good, but the rest of them are kind of like meh. The story was so uninteresting to me that I didn't even kind of bother looking into it, which is, I guess you could say, a me thing. But to be honest, I don't know how many people are looking up like Dark Ether videos trying to figure out every little detail that's going on. I mean, there's intel in the game you can collect. I don't really give a fuck about that. What I appreciate Cold War for is it's a mechanical masterpiece. That's what it is. It fixed so many issues that BO4 shoved on its plate. Cold War, during a pandemic year, ended up being a surprisingly good game, and I think if it had released years ago, if it were, you know, released a long time ago, I think it would be even more renowned. Cold War is the perfect game for somebody who does not care at all about story, and I don't care as much about the story as a lot of people, but I do want a little substance, and I didn't get much of that, and like I said, maps were kind of weak, so. But everything else was actually really good. Number 3, we have Black Ops 2. Now, before you start freaking out saying it should be higher, here's my argument, okay? Half of the maps, you're right, are overwhelmingly good. You know, you have Mob of the Dead and Origins, 2 of the 3 best maps ever. Ever. Buried's really good too. But then on the opposite side here, contrastly, you have quite literally some of the worst maps ever made. Transit is probably the worst. Die Rise is awful. Nuketown isn't bad, but it wasn't even designed for zombies. It was designed for multiplayer. It's good, it's fun, yeah. It has no fucking substance to it whatsoever. So I can't really put it at number 1 if half of the maps are ass, right? And so the map variety sort of suffers as a result. You know, the other maps are so overwhelmingly good that it somewhat compensates, but, you know, the story kind of suffers as a result of that. But the gameplay, I have no problems with the gameplay. It was actually probably one of the most innovative. You know, they just had so many new guns, so many new perks, so many new everything, it felt like. But a lot of that was for the worst. Some of it was for the better, but I can't ignore the few glaring flaws that the game has. Not many, but few. And so, but hey, it's in the top half. It's number 3 here, so round of applause, Black Ops 2. You did it, even though there were 2 devs tugging at each other the entire time. At number 2, I have BO1. Black Ops 1. My personal favorite. I will admit, I am a BO1 fanboy, but I am looking at this objectively. I think the strength of this game is how good it is overall, right? You can pick apart things, you can nitpick at specific things, and there are some issues with this game. I won't lie. Like, the gun variety isn't particularly great, but I think the wonder weapons are actually really good. I think some of the maps are questionable, right? Shangri-La, 5, they're questionable maps. A lot of people don't like them, but they're challenging. They do provide something other than just being, quote, bad. They're actually very challenging. They test you in a way that, like, Transit doesn't really test you. It just pisses you off. You know, 5, Shangri-La, these are challenging maps. But then you also have some really easy ones as well. Ascension, Kino, these are mindless maps that if you do want to get to around 1 billion on, you can. There was a lot of innovation in this game as well. It took that first step from the foundation that was World at War, and so this is kind of what I consider to be the first sort of real, authentic, fully fleshed out zombies game that they had time to think about. And they innovated a lot. They did do a lot of good for the mode. And I also appreciate the story. I don't think it's the absolute peak of the story. I think that it is a very good build-up, though. It is very good storytelling. It's not overly complex. It's at this point in its infancy where, you know, you start off with Kino in the theater, really from Derice, but, you know, you start off in that facility, then you make your way through, and then 5 and Ascension are kind of its own thing, and then you go to Call of the Dead, and then Shangri-La, and then Moon, and then the Big Bang, and that's like pretty much the best Easter egg ever. So while I do think there are some weaknesses to this game, I think they're far and few between, and I think when you kind of add it all up as a collective, this game is very solid, is the perfect word I would use. And number 1 is, of course, by the process of elimination, Black Ops 3. Now, let me just say this. If Zombies Chronicles had not existed, right? If Custom Zombies had not existed, I'm not even going to talk about Custom Zombies, but Custom Zombies with BO3 is out of this world. I mean, BO3 Custom Zombies is just an infinite source of content, but we're going to put that aside. But let's just talk about Zombies Chronicles. If that were not there, we would have 6 maps. You'd have the Giant, which was kind of unoriginal, but other than the Giant, which was still a high-quality map, you had 5 really expansive, just masterpieces. Frankly, Shadows of Evil is a masterpiece, right? Der Eisendrache, masterpiece. Zetsubo has its problems, but I think if your worst map is Zetsubo, which is a good map once you get past all the shit in the beginning, then you're doing something good, right? Zetsubo was kind of iffy with the community, but Zetsubo overall is a very high-quality map. Gorod Krovi is a banger. And Revelations, in terms of storytelling, was a little anticlimactic, and I think they could have done a little more innovating in that map in particular. But otherwise, the map variety is far and away the strongest, and then you add Zombies Chronicles on top of that. So then you add 8 fully remastered classics on top of that. You have 14 maps. I mean, 14 maps is just an astonishing number that kind of just leaves it up to no doubt whatsoever that it's number 1. Just purely based on the map variety and the story that tags along with it. It is peak storytelling. It gets a little complex around this time, but I think if you're, maybe not a hardcore fan, but if you're a Zombies fan that isn't just a straight casual, I think the storytelling is simple enough to follow, and I think it's at its peak. I thought this game had the perfect customization where you had the weapons kits and you had these features that weren't so overbearing. Like, you could customize your shit, but it didn't affect the game negatively. It didn't kill game progression. The Gobblegum system is also just huge. So important for this game's success. I understand that a lot of the Gobblegum are OP, and frankly, that was kind of Treyarch's intent after a while. They kind of gave up on the whole balance thing. But the other point there is that you don't actually have to use them. And for world records, they do differentiate whether or not you use classics, megas, or none at all. So that argument can't really even be made. I used to be the one who used to make that argument that Gobblegum are OP, but really, it just adds a really good dynamic to the game and a ton more content, obviously. My strongest case for this game is that it's hard to come up with a weakness for this game. It's the most difficult to come up with a weakness. I would say one of the biggest weaknesses is the fact that we only got 1 new perk, but that a lot of that is attributed to the whole new Gobblegum system, so you can't even really give the game that much shit for only introducing Widow's Wine. So, man, Black Ops 3, not even my personal favorite. Like I said, I'm a BO1 fanboy at heart. BO3 is probably my second favorite, but objectively, I think it is the best of all time. I think it's just as well-rounded and solid as Black Ops 1, but just with way more content to it, and I can't ignore that. I can't just pretend like there isn't way more content in this game than in every other game. And unlike BO4, it actually did a pretty good job. That is the video. Not very long, but I didn't want it to be. This is just a summary. So, hey, if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Technically, if you came here for zombies, you're not even actually getting any more zombies content. No planned content. Like, I don't have anything written down. I don't have any more to do with the zombies content. But that does not mean I am not going to ever stream it. I actually think I do want to stream it every now and then. I'm not going to give you a specific, like, time frame, but I do want to play every now and then, because I play off camera sometimes, even to this day. I'll just load up a game, so I don't see why I can't just stream that every now and then. So stay subscribed for that, and stay subscribed for the podcast that's soon to follow. Because let's be honest, you wanna hear this voice. It's not going anywhere. You want to hear it, okay? You weren't here for the zombies, okay? Maybe, but fine, whatever. Fuck you. Love you guys. Peace out.